Thank you all for joining us for the Rural Violent Crime Reduction Initiative Sustainability Planning for BJA Grantees webinar. As many folks know, my name is Samantha Reinierson, and I'm the Program Manager at the National Policing Institute for the RVCRI team. And I'm joined today by several co-presenters, Jenna Meglin, who's a Director of Policy and Planning for Partners for Rural Impact, Juliana Palmer, Policy Advisor for the Bureau of Justice Assistance, Yvette and Aaron, who are Grant Management Specialists with BJA, and also Angela and Janine, who are a part of BJA's Planning, Performance, and Impact team. And lastly, I'm joined by John Connolly, Senior Program Officer at LIST. Before we dive into today's webinar, I do want to walk through a couple of event logistics. So one, the event is being recorded today and will be distributed for future access. We will make sure to send out an email notice once the recording is available for everyone. All attendees have been muted to prevent background noise in the webinar. There will be a brief evaluation survey at the end of today's event. It should only take you a couple of minutes to complete that. And as always, we do appreciate any feedback that you provide because it does help us improve for future webinars and events. Lastly, we will be doing questions and answers at the end of today's presentation. So if you do have a question at any point along the way, please feel free to put that into the Q&A feature that you see at the bottom of your screen, and we'll make sure to answer those at the end of today's presentation. I want to quickly introduce our presenters. So starting first with Jenna. As I mentioned, she's a Director of Policy and Planning with Partners for Rural Impact. As the director, Ms. Meglin focuses on improving educational outcomes and reducing economic disparities through data collection, research, planning, and coalition building. She collaborates with partner organizations that are committed to moving outcomes for students and families in rural areas by impacting both state and federal policy. Prior to her current position, Ms. Meglin was an Associate Director of Rural Impact with Partners for Education, where she worked closely with research partners, cultural researchers, stakeholders, community members, and youth to develop and implement place-based, community-oriented strategies to address youth crime and identified hotspots within southeastern Kentucky. Next is Yvette Ruiz, who is a State Policy Advisor for the Bureau of Justice Assistance, where she manages a grant portfolio of over 200 programs that support comprehensive community-based and evidence-based violence intervention and prevention programs, including efforts that focus on gang and gun violence and promote behavioral health. Prior to working at BJA, Ms. Ruiz served as a policy advisor at the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. And our final two presenters from BJA's Planning, Performance, and Impact team are Angela and Janine. Angela is a Senior Research Associate on the team, where she directly supports BJA law enforcement programs and the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program, or better known as JAG. Her role includes performance measure development and application, data analysis and training on grantees for data reporting best practices. Janine is also on this team and has nearly 10 years of experience working in the field. Her role on the team is to support the law enforcement and tribal program topic areas. So what we plan to cover today, as you can see on our agenda slide, is to define sustainability and discuss the elements of a successful sustainability plan. We're going to talk about the BJA grant considerations that include remaining funding drawdowns and no-cost extensions if those may be needed. We're going to talk through your final grant performance metrics reporting, and then also talk about some available resources that will be coming out for you all related to sustainability planning. And as we talked about earlier, we'll close out with a question and answer section. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first presenter. Jenna, the floor is yours.
Good morning, afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Jenna Meglin. I'm with Partners for Rural Impact, and we are located in Kentucky, and our overall mission is really that all rural students succeed. So a lot of the work, almost all the work we do, is really impacting rural communities across the country, not only in Kentucky. So I'm excited to be here today to really talk about sustainability and some of the elements with it. Next slide. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard what sustainability is, but I wanted to give a couple different definitions in different contexts to kind of get a broader view of what sustainability is. So in a nutshell, sustainability is really the ability to maintain or support a program, a service, or a process over time. So it can also include the ability for an organization to sustain their goals and mission and vision over a period of time. So the main definition I really want to kind of look at, we'll use through today, is really the ability to maintain or support a program. So really the sustainability of a program is really looking at sustaining the effectiveness and the impact of the program. And this is over a long period of time, short period of time. And I think a lot of times when people think of sustainability, they automatically go to money. Like the only way you can sustain a program, sustain parts of a program, is you need money. But I really want to share with you guys the different types of resources that are available that you can sustain both a program, services, or even a process in your all's grants. Next slide. So I'll start with, like I said, financial resources. This is the most common one. I'm even guilty of thinking it when we have our grants at PRI, is how are we going to get the money to sustain these programs? So really the main buckets for financial is really grants and funding. So you can really start with your federal funds, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of, which include grants, applying for grants applications, whether it's through BJA, DOJ, we get a lot through USAID, and recently Department of Labor has actually had a few grants that are looking at after school programs. So that might be of interest for some of you guys. State funds is the second one. And when I'm talking about state funds, a lot of the state funds are actually federal dollars that have been awarded to the state. So you have to apply to the state to receive the funds. And a point to keep in mind on state funds is a number of states have not spent their ARPA dollars yet. So for example, Kentucky has $900 million unspent of the ARPA dollars that has to be spent in the next few years. So we're working with the Department of Local Government in Kentucky to see how those dollars have been allocated and see if there's somehow we can allocate those for education outcomes, and especially other infrastructure issues in rural communities. So that's one thing you might want to look at, is your state ARPA dollars and how those have been allocated. Private funds is a third source of when it comes to financial resources. In rural communities, as a lot of you guys know, there aren't many private funders that have a lot of money. You have a lot of small organizations that don't have the capacity to fund large projects. So it's really looking at those larger, like the Gates Foundation is one good one that does a lot with social and community organizing, community mobilization. So is the Bomber Group. So those are two private funds that might be worth looking into to sustaining some of your programs. And then the last one under financial is really the individual donations, which would be, could be at a rural community. It could be a, grandmother. It could be someone that has a small nonprofit that gives a donation. And those amounts could be anything from $5 to thousands of dollars. So that's, of course, the number one resource we would all like to sustain is the dollars for our programs, but it's not always, you're not always able to do that. So next little area is really human resources. So how do you sustain volunteers and skilled staff? So how do you get staff trained and volunteers trained to continue some of the work? So you may not have the funding, but if you have volunteers that understand the work and have those relationships, then they can sustain the work. In-kind services. So this again can go to time, someone's time and effort. Other in-kind services include materials, digital materials, food, venues. A lot of times in-kind resources we get is organizations and companies give in-kind their conference rooms. So we have places to meet or different types of recreation areas where we can take some of our kids to do activities. And then capacity building, really sustaining, if you're able to build the capacity of your organization in your community to really look at sustainability and continue looking at it and putting all the pieces together, then that will help sustain it. Organizational resources really looks at having that strong leadership at the organization to make sure you have that. And then the big one, which will be the one I focus on the most today, is really the collaborative partnerships. So we'll break that down, really looking at what does it look like to have collaborative partnerships in order to sustain a program or aspects of a program or project. Then knowledge and information. As we all know, if you can get data and research, you can use that to share with funders, documentation to share with community members, people outside the community, to show them the impact that your community, that your program is having in your community. And of course, expertise, that is something sustainable. If you have an expertise in something, have that person kind of share it with others in the community so that information can be sustainable throughout, way past the project or program. Next slide. And then we also have community and social resources. So really, how do you get the community engagement? How do you get the buy-in to from stakeholders and community members to really want to sustain this? So really, how do you work together to really get them engaged and feel a part of the project and really see the importance and the result of the project in the community? Education awareness resources. One big one we do is training programs. So not only training programs, but train the trainer. So we have people in the communities that are able to train, say, new teachers, new community members, new leaders, years after a grant program has been finished or no more funds available for it. And then communication strategies. Who should you share out the information about the success of your program? What aspects? How do you get students or community members to tell their story about the impact that your program is having on you? And then how do you deliver that to different funders? And then policy and regulation, it's just making sure you understand the compliance for what you're applying for, and then advocating that this program is effective and that here's the data, and you would like to have additional funding if that's the route you go. But I think we've learned through the years that there's not just one resource that really is the key. It's really having multiple different types of resources to sustain, to really make it an effective program long past the grant period. Next slide. So we really look at the lens of the theory of aligned contributions. So the theory of aligned contributions focuses on three things. It's a call to action where leaders really put a result at the center. And then it's the time and place and all the tools that are needed to sustain a program and really move a dial on a result in your community. And then the big thing, which really goes back to that collaborative partnership, is the capacity to collaborate. So leaders and community members both hold individual and collective accountability. So the next slide will kind of explain that a little bit more detail. Next slide. So as you can see, this is a map of shared contributions to shared results. So in the middle, you can see that the result this community is trying to get is all children are safe in and out of school. And so a lot of times, if you think of safety, a lot of people think, well, that's not my job. That's the law enforcement. That's the schools. That's X, Y, or Z. But we have found that really, if you're able to help people see what contribution they make to that across the sectors, that you're more likely to sustain a program because of those partnerships. So for example, we do a lot of education. So in this one, I'm going to look at public education. So the frontline leader is a teacher. Leader in public education would be a teacher. So what contribution can they play to all kids are healthy and safety? So maybe it's checking in on a student when they look upset at school. But it can always go all the way out to the policy leaders in public education. Is there a policy that needs to be changed that is affecting the safetiness of the students in school and out of school? So it's really understanding that each individual at the table has a contribution to the result, that anyone, for example, another one we use is our law enforcement officers in some of our communities always have teddy bears and books in their trunk. So anytime they go to a home with children, they make sure they have something for those children as well, and not just there to talk to the parents or the adults or grandparents. Next slide. So this really understanding the contribution leads to what we call a results action plan. So it's really the whole container, all the planning, the execution to really identify how you're going to receive your result and how you're going to sustain that result in that program. So it's not stagnant. So the great thing about a results action plan is you're constantly looking at how to improve it. And if one strategy doesn't work, then you try another one and you just continuously improve it as you work through the action plan to your results in your project. Next slide. So what we really look at is population level results. So this is really where all children are safe in and out of school, but we really start at indicators. So once you have an indicator, that could be number of detention students get. And then, so that's what you're going to focus on. And then you're going to look at a target. So you want 95% of students not to have detention. So then you look at the factors. Why are so many students getting detention? What's the root causes? What is causing that number to go up? What can you do to lower that number? And from those factors, you identify the strategies. And this is where the really nuts and bolts is what are those strategies? What are those activities within your program that's really going to not only move the dial on lowering detention rate, but also identifying strategies within that will help sustain aspects of the program. So sometimes it won't be the whole program that's sustained, but it might be, for example, a mentor program with law enforcement. So that could be sustainable by partnerships and doesn't really need money, but it's a strategy, it's a program within the larger project or grant. And then performance measures are pretty much just your way to measure who's better off, what difference you made from the program. And then finally, actions, or really what are the actions you're taking? What are those individual contributions and larger contributions that are going in place to work to meet your result, but also to sustain aspects of your program and grant. Next slide. So with this one, you're really looking at a couple of different things. So we talked about the action plan. So an action plan really comes alive when there's shared responsibility. So you have partners and stakeholders coming together around the result, which is the population level accountability. So that's really coming together, partners identifying what needs to be done, what could be done, and that takes you down to the strategies. And through the strategies is where individuals provide individual contributions, and that's the performance level. So during the strategies is really when individuals are able to identify how they can impact the program, how can they also, what resources do they have that may help sustain aspects of the program. Next slide. So we talked a little bit about the results action plan. So sustainability plan is very similar because it really outlines the actions and goals to make sure that it's sustainable. And we have found that the earlier you do a plan, the better. So as soon as we start a results action plan or we start the implementation of a grant, we start with a sustainability plan. So we can have time to really work at the nuts and bolts and start building those partnerships. So results action plan, sustainability also has a mission statement. So what is it that your mission is for the sustainability? What is your vision for the sustainability? Is it the whole project? Is it partnerships? What does it look like? And then that goes with your program description. Is there a program within your grant that is focused solely on sustainability? And if so, what does that program look like? And then identifying the key stakeholders. So who are those individuals within your community, within your organization, or even the broader community that need to be at the table to ensure that at least aspects of the grant program are sustainable. Also, every now and again, we will do a needs assessment to make sure that we are sustaining parts of the program that aren't only able to get resources easily, but also meet the needs that are needed in the community. And then, of course, identifying your goals and your objectives. Next slide. So I'll give you a few examples we have done at Partners for Rural Impact. So the first one is Full Service Community Schools Grant. So we received this in multiple counties, but in one county is called Leslie County. Through this grant, we're able to hire coordinators that build partnerships with organizations throughout the community. So even though we don't have the grant funds anymore, the school now has a strong relationship with the local law enforcement officers in the department. The school also has a very strong partnership with the behavioral health center in the community. And then also parents have been a lot more engaged. So there's that stakeholders, that sustainability of parents being engaged in the program in their kids' education. The next one is the Green Dot program. So the Green Dot is a evidence-based practice that looks at bullying, decreasing bullying by being bystanders. So the key with this one is they have a train the trainer program. So when we work into a community looking at safety, this is one we implement, but we also usually train anywhere from 5 to 10 community members, and we work in schools a lot. So school staff in the train the trainer program. So as new teachers come on board, new leaders in the community are interested in these community members that are embedded in the community and are there long term, are able to train new ones on the program. Mental health kits. So we, our school district, again in Leslie County, partnered with the behavioral health center there, and right during COVID realized that we needed to really do something for our students for mental health. So in partnership, we will do this partnership. We were able to build what we call mental health kits for the kids that had, journals, pens, fidget toys and everything. And through our resources, we paid for the material and handed it out. And then the behavioral center also did this. But the thing that really got us with this is about a year after we started doing this, one of our students ran away from his parents, and they found him a few hours later, and the only thing he had in his backpack was that mental health kit. So the behavioral health system has now picked up the cost of the mental health kits and now are providing those to the schools to put out to students and also within their system. And then finally, another county we work in is Knox County, is really attendance. We had which we still do because of COVID, don't get me wrong, chronic absenteeism was very high. So what we were able to, our result was to decrease it, and we did, but it was in the partnerships that we built, which was the sustainable part. So we had the Chamber of Commerce that would give rewards to those that had perfect attendance. The movie theater would give out 2 movie tickets for anyone that had perfect attendance for a month. We had the local McDonald's and some of the other ones that were provided free sandwich, or what it might be, to really incentivize students to come to school. So it's really, again, a lot of things that is really sustainable and does not cost money is partnerships. And they are sometimes the most important part to sustain in a project. Next slide.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Let's see. Okay, there we go. Hi, I'm Yvette Ruiz, and I've been your grant management specialist for a bit of time. Before I go on, I just want to take a moment here to introduce Erin Feely. And Erin, if you don't mind turning your video on just so people can see you and recognize you. Erin is going to be taking over this portfolio going forward. She's going to be processing your GAMs and no cost extensions. I just want to say to you all that it's really been a pleasure to work with you within the past year. But we're both here as a resource for you. So now I can get into the slides. If you can turn it over. Yeah. So my slides are sort of in light of the topic of sustaining your efforts. And as you know, part of what BJA does so well is ensure that the consistency of your progress in managing your award is there through the reporting that we require from you. And one of the types of reporting is on your financials, and the other one is programmatically speaking. You know that if you're late on any kind of reporting, all of that we keep tabs of, and if that happens, we freeze your ASAP account. But also that helps inform our grantee risk management system as well. And it also informs us when we issue new awards. So something to keep track of in terms of your long-term relationship with BJA is that submitting timely reports is always going to be very key for maintaining the relationship with us. So if we move to the next slide, I'm going to go more in the sort of the topic of our discussion today. And that is, for most of you, you're going to be closing your grant by September 30th, 2024. Some of you, a small subset, may be asking for a no-cost extension. What's going to be very important when you close your grant is when you go in Just Grants, is that you mark that final FFR in the system as final. You know how you have the option currently to mark it as just a regular report versus final. And that I just want to also emphasize that you don't have to wait till the end of your grant to submit. If you're done with all your deliverables and if you're done drawing down all your funds, you don't have to wait till the end of the grant year to submit, to submit also your financial and your final report and to close the grant. And actually, some of you have already, because you've met all your deliverables and you drew down all the funds, did indeed close the grant. So as soon as you're ready, you may begin that process. Something that I always emphasize for all grantees is keep a close eye on what is reported as in your FFR and also the amounts that are drawn down. I know that sometimes it's the accounting department that's drawing down the funds, and that's a different person than the person managing the grant. And sometimes there's small little discrepancies. So just take a moment when you're ready to close the grant to ensure that those two numbers align. And there could be errors, and it's okay. We can fix those errors. You can revise your final FFR and submit it to the grant management specialist. But if you can just have the foresight to keep a close eye on that throughout really the life of your project, you're going to avoid a lot of errors. So, all right. So then in terms of progress report, also you'll have to mark that one as final. And just make sure that as you're submitting your progress reports, that your narrative descriptions and that you're highlighting all the accomplishments and your challenges all along the way, because that really helps inform our policy division understand better what you've accomplished and where some challenges are. It really informs better the needs of the field and how perhaps our future solicitations may be tailored in the future to meet your needs the best going forward. So we're going to advance to the next slide, please. So we're in this slide, we're going to go over a little bit again over the grant award modification process. Some of you, now that you're getting close to the end of the project, may have some changes that happen but were not accounted for, and dollars may have shifted across budget categories, exceeding the 10% maximum threshold. So this is a good moment. We're still a few months away from closing your grant, whereas you've seen, things shifting quite a bit, that you may need to submit a GAM to make sure that you're within the parameters of what was in the original grant. So let's just go over what the GAM entails. It has like three things. The first is that you have a justification letter that clearly explains why and how your budget changed. Sometimes you're attaching a BJA Excel worksheet that is updated, or sometimes it's done electronically in Just Grants now that we've moved that feature within Just Grants. Finally, it's really helpful to either provide a table that shows the changes across budget categories, or sometimes even in the GAM face cover, you can show those shifts across budget categories as well. if you mark it as a financial GAM request. So, and that essentially that showing the changes across budget categories in a summary, it essentially shows BJA a before and after picture of what's happening to the changes. If you look at the bottom of the slide, there's a link there that is that shows step-by-step instructions on how to submit a GAM in YouTube. So visit that link if this is the very first time. I don't think it's most of you have submitted GAMs already, but in any case, for people that this is a new process, they may refer to that YouTube video. And then let's go over no cost extensions, which is the next slide. So some of you may have had some delay in meeting project deliverables or have had significant changes, in your project design and approach. So if that's the case, you may consider submitting a no-cost extension. This has to be done at minimum 30 days before the end of the project date. But I mean, technically you could submit it as early as 3 months before. So I would encourage you to do it as soon as you believe that, that you have a significant amount of your funds that have not been expended, and that that you need more time to meet your deliverables, to definitely submit it and consult with Erin or I. Really, I'm here to be supportive in that supportive role still about, the possibility of a no-cost extension. Now, the no-cost extension, we have instructions related to the process, and it's in the DOJ Grants Financial Manager, pages 23 and 24. And there's also a YouTube video on what needs to be included, but let's go over that very quickly. You provide a justification letter. That is unofficial, your official letter, right? And signed by an official, the highest official in your city or county or organization. And you're going to provide an explanation of the delay which prevented the completion of the project activities. This should really zero in on the obstacles that caused the delay. You're going to tell us what activities were completed and what remains to be completed. You should provide us an obligated balance of the award and how you plan to use those funds going forward, right, if the extension is granted. And finally, do provide a detailed project timeline for the new revision. Again, like I said, the GAM, a YouTube video on this is also available, but you certainly, when in doubt, please contact Erin and I related to the process. And then the final slide here is just, as you know, we on an ongoing basis to help you become more and more sustainable over time and manage your grant better. We have conducted desk reviews. We do site visits, and some of them are virtual. And those are ways to just ensure that you build up your infrastructure. And hopefully we help you. We hope that this program has helped you to look out for other sources of funding at BJA and to keep growing your current efforts. There are other operatives within BJA that also do other types of monitoring, as you know, on the Office of the Chief Financial Officer and other outfits such as the Office of the Inspector General and so on. So again, thank you. It's been always wonderful to work with you, and we're here as a resource as you either decide to close the grant now in September 30th, 2024, or if you decide to go for the no-cost extension. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Angela Balchi.
This part of the presentation is going to go over what is performance management at the Bureau of Justice Assistance. And so we'll get into what you need to report, when to report, some recent updates and changes in reporting, and final reporting requirements. Performance management is the process of which grantees are regularly collecting and reporting on their grant activities in order to determine if they are implementing those activities as desired and achieving their goals and objectives. And through using these performance measures, BJA can understand how programs are in achieving their outcomes and outputs over time, and enables us to review pre and post comparisons that can be used to assess change and future decisions. You can find additional information and other resources on the OJP Grant Performance Measurement and Progress Reporting Information Portal, both which are listed on the link on this screen. So why does BJA use performance measures? Again, performance measures have many purposes, not only for BJA, but also to you as a grantee. First, they allow BJA to look holistically at your program, as well as at the local level in order to identify areas of success and potential opportunities for improvement. This also helps BJA to target training and technical assistance resources to subjects who in localities who might need them the most. BJA also receives regular data requests, sometimes from Congress or the White House, and we rely on the data that you provide to us in order to appropriately respond to these inquiries. And finally, BJA regularly tracks progress towards your goals and reports on these through annual key performance indicators that are presented to leadership for budget formulation and other program sustainability. And finally, DOJ is required to collect these with reporting requirements of federal law, such as the GPRM, Modernization Act, the Data Act, and the GREAT Act. There are, again, several benefits to you as the grantee. You should be able to systematically monitor your performance across your grant award, and you can use that through the measures that BJA collects, as well as your own programmatic data in order to help identify success or areas for improvement. And monitoring your performance can help address any challenges proactively ahead of time before they advance, and also provide you evidence that you are in fact meeting your goals. Again, this can help with your overall sustainability planning and long-term resource advocacy for your program. So where and when do I report? As most of you have already been doing so, you report your data in the Just Grant system, and you can access that with the link on this slide. For any Just Grants related system issues or profile access issues, please contact the Just Grant support team. Their email address and phone number is also provided on this slide. Just Grants is accessible for data entry for a month after the data collection period ends. And so you can begin reporting in the first month. Begin reporting in January, and the reporting period will close January 30th, and July 1st and July 30th. Please note that while the Just Grant system allows you to begin reporting in the first month after the close of the reporting period, please wait until the reporting period has fully finished until you enter your data. So please continue collecting your data on your own until the next reporting period, which will be July 30th. Additionally, if you did not submit your performance report by the due date, your status will transition to delinquent, and you will have to be in touch with your grant manager or state policy advisor to assist you in your data submission. There is a 15-day grace period after the due date before funds are frozen for delinquent performance reports. And again, for any Just Grants related system issues, please contact the Just Grants support team directly. Next slide. Just a note on final performance reports, which Yvette had noted briefly, but just a note in the Just Grant system, when it is your last award period, the Just Grant system will automatically generate a final report on this page here. However, if you are ending your award early, then you should manually mark the report as final. This indicates that all activities are complete, the funds are obligated, and the award is ending early. What data will I need to report? There are 3 sources of required data that you will report on: performance measures, narrative questions, and closeout questions. The performance measures for your program are a series of questions that measure outcomes of grant activities specific to your grant program. And this is completed on the semi-annual basis. Then a series of narrative questions related to your program's specific goals, objectives, barriers, and success are also reported semi-annually. Finally, closeout questions are a series of questions that you only respond to when all of your activities are completed and the award is ending. And this set of questions will be displayed in your performance report when you select yes to the question, is this the last reporting period for which the award will have data to report? Next slide. And again, you can find a PDF version of your performance measures for the Rural and Small Department Violent Crime Reduction Program through the link on this slide. And the PDF can be used as a guide to track your data throughout the reporting period. That way it's easier to collect and enter the data when the reporting period opens. Just to note that we have made a few recent updates to this PDF document, which we'll go over in the upcoming slides. And so that is still in the works of being uploaded. That should be completed in the next few weeks. So just in case you head to this link after this training and some things aren't matching up, just note that that updated version will be uploaded soon. And next slide. So just to go over, again, some of these minor changes that have been made that will be visible to you in the next reporting period. First, the General Award Administration section. You complete this section each reporting period, and this is where you will indicate if this is the last reporting period, you will have data. Select yes only when all funds are expended and the award is in the process of closeout in Just Grants. Again, selecting yes will initiate your closeout section questions to appear. Note that, again, once you have initiated grant activity in question 2, the award has begun and grant activity will remain active until closeout. Again, there are a few recent changes to the Rural and Small Department Violent Crime Program questionnaire. So there is a new question number 3 on the screen that has been added, where you will indicate if you as a grantee are a small, rural, or tribal agency as defined by the award solicitation. Also, please note that any references to rural violence or rural violent crime have been replaced with violent crime problem generally, as we are aware now that not everybody may be in a rural agency. Next slide. So again, for closeout questions, answer these when you have completed your grant program, spent down your funds, and have initiated closeout. And these are specifically related to important outcomes for your program. So be sure to review these questions ahead of time, so that way you can plan to collect this data throughout the remainder of your program. Specifically, be sure to be able to describe the impact of the violent crime reduction intervention strategy that you used, especially through any quantitative or qualitative data that you may have. Also, be sure to describe your sustainability plan, including key points that were discussed from the webinar today. And then finally, narrative questions allow you to report your progress on your goals and accomplishments, along with any barriers that you may be experiencing and any TTA assistance that could help with that. and future plans. So again, as your award is entering into the final stages, be sure to track your goals and accomplishments throughout these last reporting periods. That way, your final report is able to fully demonstrate the impact of your grant award and your violent crime reduction efforts. And then finally, we would, on the next slide, we'll just share some overall tips to improve data quality best practices. Again, be sure that you are using a designated staff person to coordinate any performance measure collection and data entry. Again, specifically related to final reports, be familiar with the data that you will need to collect as part of your closeout questions and what you will be providing as evidence for your program in your narrative questions. Be sure that a backup person is trained on data collection reporting if needed. And again, consider any other data collection efforts that may be viable to you throughout the reporting period to make notes on your progress and goals so that you can easily total those at the end. And at the final slide, this is our BJA PMT help desk contact information, along with a list of additional resources that might be helpful to you throughout reporting regarding performance measures, additional training, and data collection. On behalf of the BJA Planning, Performance, and Impact team, thank you for your time and hard work. And at this time, I'll hand it back over to Samantha.
Great, thank you so much. All right, folks, I know we're coming up here on the last 10 minutes or so of our time together today, but John and I did just want to take a few minutes and chat with you all about some resources that are going to be coming out related to sustainability planning. So I know sustainability planning can be daunting, right? It can be a little bit overwhelming to think about, but one of the resources that we are going to share with you all after today's webinar is both a checklist and a worksheet that we drafted to help you all start those sustainability plans. It'll really help you guide and develop that plan to fit your agency needs based on your respective programs, since each of you are implementing something that's slightly different, right? Some of you have common elements, but the overall programs may be different. So the worksheet and the checklist will give you a way to start identifying those elements that you want to continue, as Jenna mentioned, and also provides you a space to begin drafting that formal sustainability plan. Those resources have been broken down into two primary component areas, the first being management and programmatic, and the second being financial. These checklists and worksheets will be the basis for our conversation for October 2024 Rural Roundtable, as that's the last roundtable event that you all will be participating in with us as BJA grantees. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague John to chat about the Sustainability Planning Toolkit. So John?
Thanks so much, Samantha. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Just a quick note on the Sustainability Planning Toolkit. I think Jenna did a fantastic job in terms of providing an overview of sustainability, what it is, what are the issues and topics, opportunities and challenges that come with planning for sustainability. So the toolkit that Jenna and the LIST team are currently putting together will simply be a bit of a deeper dive on many of those issues that Jenna highlighted this afternoon or this morning. And we're working to provide that to you a bit later in the spring, so stay tuned there. But look forward to being able to provide that to sites as they continue their sustainability planning efforts. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thanks, John. All right. And then just a reminder, everyone, right, as part of the RVCRA program, you do have access to no-cost tailored training and technical assistance, which can encompass sustainability planning. So with that, just a reminder to reach out to myself or John, whoever has been your lead TTA point of contact to discuss that. With that, I do want to formally open it up for the question and answer portion. So just a reminder for folks, feel free to put those questions in the chat or the Q&A feature that you see there along the bottom of your screen, and we will start working through those questions with our presenters. If you would like to direct your question to a certain presenter, feel free to put that when you send the message along. If not, I will kind of guide those out as we get them, and we may have multiple folks respond. So I'll give everyone just a minute or two to start getting those questions in. Okay, we do have our first question. Jenna, I'm going to kind of let you answer this one first, and then if others want to pitch in, please don't hesitate to speak up. But the first question is that you mentioned that the sustainability planning is a living, breathing document. How often do you recommend updating those plans? Is there a timeline that's a best practice?
Great question. So I would love to say there's a cookie cutter formula that when to look at it, but we usually have community meetings or at least program meetings at least once a month. So we kind of look at them monthly to see if we have those milestones. So we really try to set milestones and timelines. So our biggest timeline or milestones are usually, like 30 days, 60, 90 in a year. But then we try to look at that sustainability and see if we're on the right track every month to see if we need to find a new strategy, if we haven't talked to the right people. So we like to do a check-in monthly to see if where we're at on that plan.
Perfect, thank you. Pause there just to see if there are any other presenters that would like to pitch in on that. Okay. All right. It looks like we do have something in the chat, so I'm going to read this out. When it comes to our GAMs, we have been waiting over 5 months to get approval. We have numerous outreach, environmental, and surveillance related items to purchase, but without GAM approval, we've been unable to move on them. This can make it difficult to see if they have made any impact as we consider the grant term. So Yvette, I'm going to turn that one to you since that's about a GAM.
Yeah, so I would say please reach out to us. Normally, I'm not sure what happened with the scam. So just send us an email, right now so that we can look into this. I know that there's been changes in terms of staff. Staff get reassigned here at BJA, and I was reassigned, I want to say like last summer. So, but GAMs are usually, they should follow the new project officer. And this is a good point going forward. So, that the new GAMs will be received by Erin, but it's possible that maybe it was not granted a higher approval by someone else within BJA, not necessarily us. So please send us that GAM number and who you are and everything, and we'll look into it.
Yvette, that one was for, I'm sure he will send this information, but he did list, it's for the Oneida, New York Police Department. And we're still taking questions, folks. I'm just going to flip to the contact information slide just for those of you I know. Many of you likely already have Yvette's contact information, but as she mentioned, and as you got to see Erin today, she is going to be taking over. So her contact information is also there. So just want to give folks a couple of extra seconds, and these slides, we'll send these slides out as well. But just want to give folks a second to capture that information.
And, I just also want to add something. There's a little bit of a ping pong process when folks submit a GAM. And that is, the GAM is initiated by the grantee in the system, or sometimes it's initiated by OCFO if it's a budget clearance. But what happens is, if it's initiated by the grantee, submitted to us, it comes to us for our review, right? And sometimes there are issues or errors within the GAM, so it's returned to the grantee. And sometimes a grantee, by, perhaps not as familiar with the process, may have some oversight and not know that BJA has requested for them to address something. So you need to log in. I mean, I'm just saying this in general. Folks need to really track their project within Just Grants. When something's not right, call us, definitely, but also go into Just Grants to see if something's stuck there, right? And I know, part of the work I've done with grantees this last year is obviously helping navigate the system, which, at first can be a little overwhelming, but I'm just saying that there could be other dimensions of, you know, maybe not responding immediately to a grantee for your awareness.
Thanks, Yvette. Just gonna pause there. Erin, just do you have anything to add from your perspective? If not, that's completely okay. And I'll take a not coming off of mute as a response.
No, that's fine. I think Yvette covered that one pretty well, because sometimes there are certain functions in Just Grants will have an automatic kind of like email that will get sent out when there are changes to a GAM or say a PR, but sometimes it doesn't always work. So I definitely agree with you know, with Yvette. Definitely log in and monitor that stuff.
Great, thank you. All right. And then one more question, and Jenna, again, I think I'm going to pitch this one to you first. But it is, you mentioned that partnerships can be a critical part to sustainability planning. When we think about who should be at the table for that, who do you recommend? And this is specifically related to a kind of like responsibility within an organization. So
we first off, we went cross-sector, but within the organization, we usually want someone that has the authority to make decisions. So you want someone that, for example, if you're saying that your contribution is X and Y, you have to make sure that that person is able to say that of the organization, or that individual contribution, that person can do that. So we usually want people at the table that do have some authority to make authorization on behalf of the organization. But we also know sometimes that doesn't happen. So as we all know, especially in rural communities, people wear 5,000 different hats. So sometimes you will have to send someone in your place. But usually we like someone that does have the authority to make some decisions.
Thank you. All right. Well, folks, those are the last questions that I had in the chat. Of course, we still have time, so if you're still typing into there, do feel free to continue. While folks may be doing that, I am just going to give some closing remarks here. I did go ahead, as I mentioned, and flip to the contact information slide just so that folks can begin copying down that information if they would like to. So you can see mine and John's information here, although many of you have our contacts. Jenna's contact information is here as well, along with our BJA presenters. So if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to those folks, or if you want to send those questions to John and myself after this event, we're happy to coordinate the responses there as well. Also, too, following up on that evaluation survey that I mentioned in the opening comments. So you have a couple of different ways you can access that one. If you'd like to scan the QR code that you see there on the screen, you can do it that way. My colleague has also put the link to the survey in the chat, so you can click there. And then the third way is, when we close out of today's event, it should auto pop on your screen. When we send the follow-up email as well in a couple of days, we'll send a reminder about this survey as well. Again, I know you all probably get inundated with those feedback surveys with various events, but they really do help us improve, and we try to keep them short for you all. With that, I don't see any additional questions in the chat, so I am going to begin closing it out, but just want to open it up if any of our presenters or my colleagues here have any final comments that they would like to make. Please feel free to do so. Great. Well, again, thank you all. We will get this recording finalized and posted. And again, we will send out that email notification when the recording is ready. And then shortly after, either this afternoon or tomorrow, please do be on the lookout for an email from us that will have the PDF of this PowerPoint and the checklist and worksheet that we talked about on the resources slide. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We do appreciate your time, and have a great rest of your day.